I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
This episode is brought to you by Hyperice, the leader in advanced warm-up and recovery technology. They have tons of innovative products, like Venom-heated wearables to help soothe sore back muscles, Normatec compression boots to speed up recovery and increase circulation, and Hypervolt massage guns to improve mobility. Loved by athletes like Naomi Osaka and Erling Haaland. Try them yourself. Get 10% off your order with the code MOVE at hyperice.com.
Stephen Krajcik of the Lotto Jumbo team as well, and Adam Yates of Orica Green Edge, and Anthony Turgis, who had a little bit of a tumble as he headed in towards Scarborough but stayed on his bike.
Great Britain have won their first medal. It was Adam Peaty in a world record time, breaking his own world record.
She punches the air and she crosses that blue finish line. The world champion of 12 months ago, who finished second here last time around, has won it.
The athlete's village is not a place for fighting. I've never heard that ever in Olympic and Paralympic history.
This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast, covering the games all the time, rather than just once every 4 years. I'm Michael.
And I'm John, and coming up in this episode, using Poland for Paris, our countdown to the European Games continues, as we're joined by two Team GB stars looking to use it to book their place at the Olympics next summer.
Yep, we're going to be joined by Alex Davis and Lisa Thomson from the GB Rugby Sevens team, where there is a qualification spot up for grabs in Krakow.
We'll round up the other Olympic and Paralympic headlines in our news from the Games. Is Djokovic the greatest ever? And with Saudis taking over sport, we ask when the Olympics will be next.
As always, you can let us know what you think. Get in touch anytime. Find us on Twitter at AnythingButF. Follow the feed there. John does sterling work on it, as he does over on Instagram and on Facebook as well. You can find us there at Anything But Footy. Check out our latest blogs and all things sport. Here's some of our work as well, our podcasts and our radio series, all online at anythingbutfooty.com.
Now, the European Games. They're not the Olympics, but the next best thing. So says the Team GB website. Action starts in Poland on June 21st. Across 12 days, 48 nations competing across 20-odd sports. Now, we talked a lot about it in the last episode, so if you haven't heard that yet, you need to go back and hear that, including an interview with Charlotte Worthington. But Team GB is sending 177 athletes across 18 disciplines. And last time, 4 years ago in Minsk, they won 23 medals and finished 9th in the medal table.
As Charlotte Worthington told us in that interview, it's like a mini Olympics. Team GB have confirmed the latest selections of the 5 sport climbing athletes to compete at the European Games. They are Diane Akhtar and Sam Butterworth, who will compete in the men's boulder, Matthew Fall and Rafe Stokes in the men's speed, and Lucy Garlick in the women's lead. Emma Whittaker is also there, has replaced Charlie Follett, who's pulled out of the modern pentathlon team because of an injury.
Now, the Rugby Sevens is one of the fastest and popular sports in the world at present. We saw the success, of course, in Coventry at the Commonwealth Games last year. Well, this year, Great Britain have come together to compete in the World Series instead of England, Scotland and Wales separately, with hopes of bettering the 2 fourth positions at the Tokyo Olympics. Just gives them more time. Now, 26 men and women will be going to the European Games, looking to book their place in Paris next summer. And we've been hearing from 2 of them, Scottish centre Lisa Thomson, but first, Alex Davis.
Now that we've finished the Sevens World Series, our sort of regular domestic competition, we're super excited about sort of drawing our attention onto the upcoming qualifier. Super excited about what's to come.
No, it's hugely important. It's obviously direct qualification to Paris next year. So it's been a long old season already, but get qualified and yeah, I guess start looking ahead to Paris in an Olympic year.
What is different about being part of a Great Britain squad then at a multi-sport event?
It's pretty unique. I got my first taste of it back in 2016 in Rio, and I think the one thing that stood out for me was, although there's some guys there that I was looking up to in other sports like Adam Peaty, some of those like real star names of British sport, but it's just a level playing field. Like everyone's there representing GB, trying to perform to their best, do themselves proud, do the people that care about them proud, and obviously do GB proud. And I think that's the one thing that really stood out for me. There wasn't kind of any egos. Everyone was just like really pushing and willing and supporting each other to do their best, whether that was a medal or not. People always wanted to go out there and enjoy it and represent the team.
And how different has preparation been ahead of Paris 2024? Obviously, you had to qualify, as you've said, but all eyes to that because you've created this GB Rugby Sevens, while previously it was very much England, Scotland, and Wales separately.
Yeah, I think like it's been huge learning for everyone involved, and also obviously we've been together for a season already, whereas last time before Tokyo we were obviously chucked together for 6-7 months prior to that. So yeah, no, it's been so good to get together 2 seasons out from the Olympics, and I guess as Scottish and Welsh be part of that qualification process. Obviously England qualified for Team GB last time, got that qualification spot for us, but it'll be, yeah, it's real cool to, I guess, be part of that World Series and get a lot more experience at the top level, going into an Olympic Games in an Olympic year. But being part of that whole process is real cool, and I think of huge value to everyone.
Yeah, well, I think the difference is we actually get on now. Previously, obviously, being England, Scotland, and Wales, mutual dislike for each other that comes with sport. But now, it's been great. It certainly had its challenges. Obviously, everyone's located across the country, and we've had to slightly adapt our model to this kind of camp focus, where we've been jumping around the country from time to time leading up to competitions. But I think that's almost one thing that we've tried to use to our advantage or just lean on, is that we've had an opportunity to create new, strong relationships rather than seeing it as like this big sort of glaring thing that's going to be really difficult. We've seen it as a huge opportunity.
Now, we talk about the Olympics quite a lot on this podcast, frankly, every week. So you're going to have to help us with something here, because I've never quite understood this. You went to Tokyo, I understand, as a reserve. So yeah. Are you an Olympian?
Yeah, I played in one of the pool games. Prior to Tokyo, they had the rule of 13th player being just a travelling reserve, but I think it was to do with playing time and COVID and stuff, so people hadn't been playing as much rugby. They allowed it to be a whole squad of 13 going into that Olympics. So I'd been named as 13th player, and then the rule got changed. And yeah, I was grateful to get on the pitch against Kenya for a couple minutes.
So it was great news for you. You probably haven't solved my my debate, though, whether reserves are ever going to be an Olympian, because, of course, they changed the rules for Tokyo, as you said, with COVID. So we'll find out. When you were named as a reserve, how difficult is that? Because you're kind of going, but you're not kind of going.
Yeah, it was real mixed emotions. I think I thought, like, I never thought I'd be going to an Olympics because I was a rugby player. No other sport really took my fancy, and obviously rugby was never at the Olympics until Rio. So no, as soon as it was an Olympic sport, I thought I want to be part of this. And at that point, I was also like, yeah, I'm a 15s player. I don't play sevens. So as soon as I started playing more sevens, and yeah, I wanted to be part of that. It was real cool, and just it was mixed emotions. I guess I never thought I'd be there, and then I was going, and then I wasn't playing, and then I was able to play, and then it was during the weekend. It was like, am I going to get an opportunity? So no, it was a roller coaster, but just hugely grateful to just be there in the first place, and to get an opportunity to play was actual class, and just made me hungry for more, I guess.
And in terms of rugby sevens, a relative newcomer, if you like, to the Olympic sporting field, but I was there at the Diodoro in 2016. What a brilliant, wonderful night, other than obviously the result for you guys in the final. But you really felt like rugby belonged on that Olympic stage. Do you guys feel like you belong there now?
Yeah, certainly. I think all of us who have played rugby sevens for a number of years now, both internationally and kind of on the invitational circuit in the UK, have recognised the value of the sport and the excitement surrounding it. Often at all of these competitions, even at grassroots level, there's a real great buzz around the competition. And I think rugby as a sport can be quite complicated for the people that aren't too familiar with it. And rugby sevens, although all the same rules apply, it breaks it down a little bit easier just because like there's so much more action and you kind of get to grips with the balls in play a lot more, and there's a fair bit more going on. So I think the way it's sort of sprung onto the Olympic scene has really sort of shown what a fantastic sport it is, and I think that will be even more sort of evident when it's in the Stade de France in Paris next year.
And like all elite sports people, you've obviously had your concerns with injury worries before big tournaments. How are you at the moment ahead of the European Games?
Yeah, I'm currently nursing a small hamstring injury, but it comes with the territory. And like personally, I'm fairly well versed when it comes to sort of rehab journeys. So I'm not too concerned, and things are definitely on track at the moment. Feeling really good about the next couple of weeks leading into competition. So the squad as well. I think everyone's super confident, feels refreshed despite a long World Series season. We're very much, I guess, looking forward to the next couple of weeks.
2 more questions for me, Alex, if I may.
Yep.
Poetry. Does it keep you cool? And what are you reading at the moment?
Again, this title of a poet a lot, which I think's a bit generous, to be honest. I read a couple books that I kind of dip in and out of that I picked up during lockdown. Was the Poetry Pharmacy. This guy was essentially prescribing poems for people's conditions. So it's a bit out there, but I think they're just quite cool. Like even one of them was I know this is the Anything But Footy podcast. One of them was the "You'll Never Walk Alone" poem or song that Liverpool obviously chant famously, and that was more to do with like loneliness and making sure that people are around you and you've got that connectivity. So yeah, for me it's more something that I guess gives me like, it's like a tool to like switch off and get away from rugby now and then. Like I'm not a particularly good reader, but I do enjoy it as like a moment just to kind of decompress and get away from the sport.
I always amazed when I watch sporting events from right around the world that there's always a Union flag, whatever sporting event it is. And what tends to happen when I watch British sport is there's always a saltire somewhere as well. Yeah. How important is that? How great is that you get that Scottish support as part of GB?
Oh, we absolutely love it. Yeah, I think there's a running joke in the team that us Scottish people are far too Scottish for our own good. But no, absolutely love it. Like whatever sport it is, like there is always Scottish flags, English flags, Welsh flags wherever we go, and yeah, the odd Union Jack. So no, whatever sport it is, we know that it is for the whole team. So no, we hugely appreciate it, and I love seeing a saltire there.
Yeah, and you, of course, captain for Scotland women at the Commonwealth Games as well, and it's a great, you saying earlier about rugby sevens. It's just a fantastic sport. If people haven't seen it, it is brilliant.
No, it's absolutely class. Yeah, co-captain alongside Helen Nelson, and yeah, it's unreal. I think like I've played 15s my whole life, and I think for the spectator that hasn't really watched 15s or watched sevens, sevens is definitely easier to get into, and I think that's a big part of why we do what we're doing. Like especially as females, like to get young girls watching. I think sevens probably a gateway into, I guess, women's rugby. 15s, there's a lot of laws that always are forever changing. So yeah, rugby sevens, and it's an exciting game to watch. It gets the spectator on their seats. So no, we're a huge advocate for it.
Final question then, back to the European Games. You guys know what you got to do. That qualification spot is there. You know that you want to try and get it for Paris 2024.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like it's as simple as that. That's the goal, is to get qualification for Paris. And then, yeah, we can focus on building ourselves into that year without having to stress, I guess, about do we still need to qualify and whatever. Yeah, it's as simple as that. We need to go out and qualify in Krakow.
I think it'd be a huge achievement, like a really, really big achievement. I think being involved in Olympic qualifying teams and Olympic performing teams previously was a great achievement. But I think for this group, considering the challenge we've had, only being together for about a year, a bit of uncertainty now and then around funding. I think for this group, yeah, it would be massive. And if we can achieve that in the coming weeks, I certainly think for myself and everyone else, it will be up there as kind of, I guess, one of the proudest achievements and occasions so far.
Well, we wish you all the best of luck. Thank you so much for talking to Anything But Footy.
Thank you so much for your time, Alex.
Nice one. Cheers, guys. Take care.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Scottish centre Lisa Thomson, and before that Alex Davis representing Team GB at the European Games in the sport of rugby sevens. And just to bring you up to date on that, the British men lost to France in the bronze medal match at the Algarve Sevens this weekend. The women won the silver after losing to France in the final, and we'll have full coverage of the European Games, which start on the 21st of June. Let's continue on this episode of Anything But Footy with one of the stories that's dominating and will dominate the build-up to the Paris 2024 Olympics, and I suspect beyond that to Los Angeles 2028. We're starting with boxing, where the International Olympic Committee Executive Board have recommended to their latest IOC session to withdraw recognition of the International Boxing Association, that's the IBA. This is after a report where the IBA was established by the IOC to fulfill various conditions amongst governance, finance and judging. The IOC have said the IBA have not engaged, they've not fulfilled those conditions, and therefore they have withdrawn that recognition. It does mean that boxing stays on the Paris 2024 programme, though. That is also the recommendation of the Executive Board. Who will organise that boxing tournament, we'll have to wait and see. The AOC did it, of course, in Tokyo. And it could mean that boxing doesn't appear in LA. It was left off the programme of sports originally, but it does look like the IOC is offering a route back. The IBA, in response, held an emergency meeting. Many programmes, many of the national boxing programmes are now joining the new world boxing movement, and it could be that it's that organisation, John, that leads the sport moving forward.
Yeah, and Great Britain very much part of that. Now, we're nearly about 400 days away from Paris 2024. If you are going, apparently the hotels are getting booked up, so you might want to start looking at that. And we heard that in the last week, because we heard from the IOC chair of the Coordination Committee working with Paris 2024 to make sure that the games are on schedule. Pierre-Olivier Beckers was speaking at a news conference that we were online for as well. He said there were no delays, everything was on schedule, and we're leaving confident that Paris will be ready for the Games. That's the Coordination Committee leaving it to the organisers. He also described a new type of games. That's what Paris is all about, according to the Beckers, who is this IOC chair. A new era, he said. It's a unique, innovative, spectacular. It's sustainable, responsible for society, and he also described it as a very complex games to organise. He did say the French people are continuing to support at this stage of the Games, and the ticket sales have been crucial. And actually that's where we then heard a bit more in detail about that, because Tony Estanier is the president of 2024. He's a former canoe slalom Olympian himself for France, and he spoke incredibly well at this news conference, and he said, look, we're on time, we know the clock is ticking, we want to be ready to welcome the whole world in July 2024. And he said that the people in France are mobilised, the people are excited. You can see that in the amount of ticket sales, and we talked about that in the last episode. About 75% have already been sold, and the volunteer numbers are incredibly high as well. So he said hotel numbers are up and they are getting busy. So the advice very much, if you're going to the Olympics, you've got your tickets already, it is worth booking your accommodation.
Two quick points just to make on that. Firstly, I think the IOC will be very relieved after all the problems in the build-up to Rio. There's still time, of course, for things to go wrong between now and Paris 2024. 400 days to go, as you say. But I think the IOC will be pleased. All the problems ahead of Rio, the delay, obviously, to Tokyo. It seems that everything's on schedule for this one, and that will have gone down well at IOC headquarters. And secondly, what I'm seeing, the artists' impressions of the way some of the sports are going to be staged, what we're seeing in terms of what we're hearing about the opening and the closing ceremonies and the imaginative staging of that, it is all very exciting ahead of Paris. I really am looking forward to these games. Before that, though, Team GB have announced another team, 39 in this one, for the European Youth Olympic Festival, which is being held in Slovenia. It's the 17th edition. It's taking place towards the end of July. 11 Olympic sports on the programme: gymnastics, athletics, handball, judo, cycling, swimming, tennis and volleyball, plus 3x3 basketball, mountain biking and skateboarding on the programme for the first time. Now, Team GB, as I said, said, sending 39 athletes in 5 sports: judo, artistic gymnastics, mountain biking, road cycling and swimming. And if you're wondering what the point of these games is, the European Youth Olympic Festival, previous athletes that have taken part include the likes of Niall Wilson, Duncan Scott, Dina Asher-Smith and Tom Pidcock. And we know what happened to them. This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast. Stay with us as we ask this question. Is Novak the untouchable? And as the Saudis take over sport, when will it be the turn of the Olympic and the Paralympic Games?
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
This is Anything But Footy, and we turn to tennis right now, and time to debate the GOAT. Yes, the greatest of all time. Is Novak Djokovic the greatest male tennis player there is? The reason we're asking this, of course, history was rewritten at the French Open in Paris as he beat Casper Ruud of Norway in his second consecutive final at Roland Garros in straight sets, 7-6, 6-3, 7-5. So Ruud has now appeared twice and lost twice to Nadal last year and now Djokovic. Now, Djokovic has equalled Serena Williams' record of 23 Grand Slams, winning his third French title in Roland Garros, and he's now one behind Margaret Court, who remains way out in front on 24. So he could take that and become the greatest ever, rather than just male, could become the greatest tennis player of all time. But crucially, he's overtaken Rafa Nadal and, of course, Roger Federer. So is he the best? Now, look, he's controversial, he's brash, he's not everyone's favourite. But age 36, he said he'll be back in Paris next year, along with Rafa Nadal. So he's not stopping here. And he's on course, I think, to maybe do an official Grand Slam. When I was growing up, Michael, a Grand Slam was when you won all 4 majors in 1 year. Now we just call them Grand Slams all the time. However, he could do the calendar Grand Slam, having won the Australian Open already this year, Wimbledon coming up, and the US Open to come as well. He's won 23 of those titles, while arguably the 2 other GOATs have been playing. I mentioned those, Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer, but also Britain's best ever, Andy Murray as well, who won a couple of Olympic golds, a couple of major titles himself. Stan Wawrinka as well was winning titles as well. So I personally think that you can't argue with the statistics of Djokovic. You can like him or dislike him, but you can't argue with what he's done.
I agree with you. I think the statistics, the honours board shows that he is, as it stands at the moment, the best male tennis player ever in terms of winning those big tournaments that people care about. To have done it in an era alongside the likes of Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal as well. I mean, the way those 3 players, and Andy Murray to a certain extent as well, have pushed each other on and taken the strength of the game and the quality of the game as well over the past couple of decades, if you like. I mean, what a time to have been a tennis fan and enjoyed this era of men's tennis. It's been fantastic. You know, some people will say that Andy Murray's been unlucky to have come up in the era with Djokovic and Nadal and Federer ahead of him. I don't ever buy into that argument because I think there will always be a 4th best player, won't there? I mean, if Murray had been in the era of Stefan Edberg, Ivan Lendl and Boris Becker, he might have been the 4th best player. If he'd been in the era of Jimmy Connors, Bjorn Borg, John McEnroe, he might have been the 4th best player. I think, you know, Andy Murray can be very satisfied, very happy with what he's achieved in his career. Undoubtedly, the highlight will have been that first Wimbledon title. The waiting is over, as the famous commentary says. You know, to have won a couple of Olympic golds as well, to win 1 Olympic gold is fantastic. To then back that up 4 years later, brilliant. But to answer the question, is Novak the greatest male tennis player of all time? In terms of what he's achieved on the court, yes, probably.
We'll talk Murray in a moment, but talking of gods of tennis, if you haven't watched the documentary that's on BBC iPlayer at the moment, I think BBC Two are showing it on a Sunday night. It's a superb reflection of 70s and 80s tennis. It was Arthur Ashe and it was John McEnroe and Bjorn Borg. It was Billie Jean King, Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert. I've watched all three back to back, and they're a good hour. I think they did Gods of Snooker a couple of years ago as well. It's that quality of production. It is incredible, and it reminds me of why I love tennis so much growing up in an era when you just saw players like that. And actually, Michael, you kind of forget that how, and they only touch on this at the end of Martina Navratilova's career, was Steffi Graf, how she then dominated throughout the 90s. And again, not sure she quite gets the amount of coverage that she should in hindsight. But it is well worth watching. Gods of Tennis. It will get you in the mood for Wimbledon.
Am I right in saying, just about Steffi Graf, by the way, you know you were talking about the calendar Grand Slam. Did she do that and win an Olympic gold medal in the same year as well? So, I mean...
1988.
1988. I mean, you talked about her dominating in the 90s. She did that in 88, obviously, as the racket was being handed from Martina to Steffi. But again, one of the very, very best people that we've ever seen. And you clearly have been doing your homework ahead of covering Wimbledon for Radio News Hub this year, watching all these tennis documentaries as we head towards SW19.
Yeah, I can't wait. I tell you what, it wasn't a bad few days for West Ham supporting Andy Lapthorne as well. He won his second French Open quad doubles title with South African Donald Ramfidi over the weekend. Of course, West Ham celebrating that success in Europe, and they have to now pay the Olympic. You know, they have the Olympic Stadium in London. Yep. They now have to pay a bit more rent for that because they've won a European title. So the taxpayers get a little bit more money from that. So everyone was supporting West Ham that day. Alfie Hewitt and Gordon Reid won the men's doubles title, their fourth successive victory and 17th in total between those pair. They are a super Paralympic pair, Alfie and Gordon. From a women's point of view, Iga Swiatek predictably won the women's final in the end. It was amazing from Machova to knock out Sabalenka and get to the final, but I did kind of think that she'd won her final by getting to the final, if that makes sense. And Swiatek remains world number one with that victory and comes to Wimbledon looking to do a little better on the grass courts. Very quickly, Andy Murray won the Lexus Surbiton Trophy. A thunderstorm delayed the match, so his kids missed out on seeing him lift it. We saw Djokovic's kids see him lift the trophy, but Andy's kids still haven't seen him do that. It was the first time he'd won on grass, I think, since 2016. It was Murray's second ATP Challenger title of this year and his fourth overall. He's aged 36, now the oldest man to ever win a grass court ATP Challenger. This man does not stop because he's now taken a wild card to play at Nottingham this week. And unfortunately, you mentioned I'll be covering Wimbledon. We won't be seeing Jack Draper, a rising British star. We've talked about him a few times on the podcast. He is out of Wimbledon with that shoulder injury that forced him to pull out of Roland Garros on debut, and he now misses the entire grass court season.
Let's serve up some more headlines for you now. It's out news from the Games. We'll begin with rowing. 57 athletes named by British Rowing for the next Rowing World Cup event in Italy. 18 boats, including all 5 gold medal winning boats from the recent European Championships. It includes the 2-time Paralympic champion Lauren Riles, partnered by Greg Stevenson in the PR2 mixed doubles sculls. They recorded a world best time to win that gold. Also, European champions in the women's lightweight double sculls, the men's 4, the men's 8, and the PR3 mixed cox 4, which includes Erin Kennedy, another Paralympic champion. She will cox an unchanged crew.
So much sport in Paris at the weekend. Anyone would have thought they'd be preparing for the Olympics or something. But the Diamond League came to the Stade Charlotte, and Keely Hodgkinson literally ran away from the women's 800 metres field, set a British record, personal best in the process, 55.77, 3 seconds quicker than the field. Absolutely incredible stuff from Keely. It followed as well Faith Kipyegon, who claimed the 5,000 metre world record 7 days after breaking the 1,500 metres, of course. Laura Muir was 12th in Paris, but it was a personal best. It shows how fast that race was in the 5,000. Dina Asher-Smith was 4th in the women's 200s. And I tell you, Norway, they have some incredible sports stars at the moment. We obviously don't mention it here very often, but Mr. Haaland playing for Man City, doing the treble. We mentioned, of course, Casper Ruud, French Open, getting now to 3 major finals, and Jakob Ingebrigtsen continues to set the track alight as well with an official world record, world's best, because you don't have an official world record over the 2 miles, but he set a world's best of 7:54.10 as well in Paris.
Do you remember when Australia were doing phenomenally well in the world sports scene and all the other nations were looking at what Australia were doing in their Institute of Sport? It was the kind of programme, if you like, that I think UK sport and we copied in this country, and we've seen obviously success at Olympic and Paralympic level. I suspect now there will be a lot of nations looking at the way Norway are bringing through their sports stars in terms of how they get from that mass participation, bottom of the pyramid, people playing sport on a Sunday morning, a Saturday afternoon, people playing sport in schools and what have you, and how they are then bringing those people through to the success that you've just mentioned there. I think Norway will be the next one. If there's people listening at UK Sport in their research department at the moment, I'm sure they'll already be all across this.
Yeah, because I didn't even mention Carsten Warholm as well. Yeah. I mean, he has changed 400 metre running, as we know. It's the Bislett Games in Oslo, the big athletics meeting this week, by the way, as well. And you're absolutely right. Norway, they're all young kids as well. That's the thing. They're all in their early 20s who are performing so well.
Yeah, and the thing is, we can learn. We can learn from other nations, and that is what, as a sort of tongue-in-cheek mention there, what UK Sport will be doing. They'll be looking at results that Norwegian athletes have had and thinking, is there anything? Because we know that they're such a details organisation, which is why British sport's in such a good position at the moment. They'll think, is there anything that we can possibly learn? Staying with athletics, 2023 European Team Championships are going to be staged in Poland, end of June. Great Britain and Northern Ireland up against 15 other nations, 3 days of competition. They've selected a full team, so they've got some experienced names in there. They've also got athletes making their debuts, 11 in total. Imani Lara Lansiko, the Olympic medalist, is one of the more experienced athletes. Richard Kilty, a world medalist, an indoor world champion, back from injury, of course, having missed most of last season. He's part of the team. And European medalist from last year, Lawrence Akay and Alex Haydock-Wilson, also in the Great Britain and Northern Ireland squad for those European Team Championships. And then, of course, the British Athletics Championships in Manchester in July. A reminder, we will be there, me specifically, because John will be at Wimbledon, and we're covering that one for Talk Sport, National Radio.
We'll round up some of the other headlines from the Games in a moment, including hockey, sailing and canoe slalom. But just quickly on world golf, Michael, it was like an earthquake in the sport of golf last week when the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour and the Saudis announced a new world golf format. It basically, according to Rory McIlroy, said that Live Golf was dead. But the Saudi Public Investment Fund that had been backing Live now seems to have done a deal with the PGA and the European Tour, the DP World Tour as it's now known. And of course, I mentioned Rory McIlroy because he has been fighting against this for a number of months and years. And I think he found it very difficult. Lots of other golfers who stuck with the PGA have also been quite blindsided by this decision. The PGA says it will unify the game of golf on a global basis. But my question and what I really want to talk to you about is at what cost? Now, this is not the first time that we've seen Saudi Arabia move into sport. Newcastle, they're buying footballers like their candy, as well as we've seen with Ronaldo and Benzema and Kante going in the last week. Boxing bouts are held in Saudi Arabia. Golf fans now know that at least everything will be together, but it is being bankrolled by Saudi Arabia cash.
Yeah, I think the word blindsided that you used was a very accurate description. I couldn't believe it, and I've been following this story pretty closely. I couldn't believe it when I saw what happened. I feel enormously sorry for the likes of Rory McIlroy that, didn't take the money, have continued to plough this furrow where everyone else seemed to be going across, but continuing to try and, if you like, play on behalf of the PGA Tour, and then found themselves, a week ago suddenly all back together again. The bigger issue for golf is, I think, there needed to be some kind of solution. There needed to be a coming together because we've seen it, haven't we? You look at how disparate boxing titles are. We don't really often know who the proper world heavyweight champion is because there might be 3 or 4 of them. We've seen it in the past when darts split, for example, as well. It's to the detriment, I think, of everyone concerned, supporters who might be left with sort of 2 tiers of the sport to follow. Certainly the sports people, there's probably no right or wrong decision to make. And then the organisers as well. We went through years and years, didn't we, of having 2 darts world championships, one after the other. That can't be right. And so I think it's a good thing in the long term that golf has come back together. And I think you're right as well, highlighting that other sports, have invited Saudi Arabia in. There was a huge triathlon event in Saudi Arabia, but we didn't hear issues over our leading triathletes going out and competing in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia compete as a country in football's World Cup. They're a member of FIFA. Yep. You talk about Newcastle United, you talk about all the big football stars going out and playing in Saudi Arabia at the moment. And, you have to think, and I think back to what Andy Anson said to us from Team GB, the British Olympic Association, in a previous episode of Great British Bosses, talking, I think, specifically about China, actually, at that point. It's like, well, if we continue to have diplomacy with these nations and we continue to trade with these nations, then why is sport being held up as a sort of higher value, if you like? Why shouldn't sport go and do exactly what we're doing at a government level and what we're doing at a commercial level?
I think that is the key question that we need to do. If the government's doing deals with Saudi Arabia, what is the issue with sport doing it? But it opens up a whole lot of can of worms, and no doubt Saudi Arabia will at some point be looking to bid for the Olympics and Paralympics. We will wait with that with interest.
Yeah, Riyadh 20... What do we think? Have a guess. 32, we know, is Australia. 2036? 2040?
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. On to the rest of the news from the Games. And British Cycling have announced that Geraint Thomas, Eleanor Barker and Fred Wright will all take part in the British National Road Championships, being staged just down the road from me in Redcar and Cleveland between the 21st and the 25th of June. It's the first time in 10 years for former Tour de France winner Geraint Thomas to take part. The event will feature time trials, circuit races and the road championships as well. That is going to be a terrific week of cycling in Redcar and Cleveland. I'm looking forward to going along and watching some of it.
Now, the hockey skirt has finally been given short shrift thanks to England and Great Britain hockey. Nick Pink, the CEO, and Captain Holly Pern-Webb had written to the International Hockey Federation calling for a review of kit rules, and they've now agreed. So it means female athletes can wear what they want. About time. Shorts, skirts, or skirts, it doesn't matter, they can choose.
British Sailing have included John Gimson, Anna Burnett and Emma Wilson in their team for the upcoming Paris 2024 test event, which is not in Paris, it's in Marseille. The medal-winning trio are amongst a team of 14 heading to France. Gimson and Burnett won silver in Tokyo. They've had a great start to 2023, unbeaten in their NACRA 17 category. Very much, I would say, a new era for British Sailing at the moment. Some new names that we'll need to get used to after retirements of some of the big guns like Giles Scott, Hannah Mills, Ellie McIntyre, Dylan Fletcher and Stuart Bithell.
Lee Valley Whitewater Centre is preparing to stage the World Canoe Slalom Championships later this summer, and a brand new starting gate for Kayak Cross has been built. Now, the event makes its debut in Paris next year, and British stars Joe Clark, Mallory Franklin and Kimberly Woods have all won medals in it during the past year. And the new ramp means that 4 paddlers at a time start on an elevated position and then go straight into the Whitewater Rapids. There are pictures on our socials if you want to have a look at it. It's impressive stuff. And talking of Kimberly Woods, a winning weekend for her. She grabbed gold in the kayak cross at the latest World Cup in Prague, and Tokyo Olympic medalist Mallory Franklin bagged bronze in the K1 on Friday as well, her first World Cup race of the year.
More medals at Taekwondo's Grand Prix event in Rome. A bronze for Rebecca McGowan, gold for Caden Cunningham, and after her disappointment at the World Championships, a gold for 2-time Olympic champion Jade Jones.
Now, for much more, you can check out our sporting calendar for the summer. All our latest blogs on the website as well, anythingbutfooty.com. As ever, you can get in touch at anythingbutf on Twitter or on anythingbutfooty on Insta and Facebook. Now, it's been quite a controversial week in the world of golf, as we've been hearing. Some huge question marks about who's the greatest in tennis over the last few days. But with 400 days to go, we know one thing for certain. We can't wait for the next Olympics and Paralympics in Paris.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.